Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show and another exciting guest. Let me tell you where we're going with this show today. When you talk about a beast mindset, let me tell you, we're going to talk about the fear of trying. Let me explain to you where we're going with the fear of trying. Imagine, if you will, having a solid career. And then somewhere along life's journey, you decide that you want to pivot. But then the idea of what am I pivoting to? What choices do I have? And we're talking our midlife challenge, when most of us have that setback of fear. And what usually happens before the fear factor sets in during this so-called transformation, illnesses set in. Not with everybody. These illnesses consist of depression, anxiety, just overall fear itself. Today on the show, we have a beautiful lady who decided to take the bull by the horn, decided to tackle the word fear and take a second part of her life and make it even a more memorable part of her life. So welcome to the show, attorney Julie Waas, to the show. What's up, baby girl?
Nice to see you. Great to be
smile.
here.
Look at that smile. Nothing brightens my day but a beautiful smile.
Gotta keep smiling. That's my theory.
Before we get deep into this transformation of conquering fear, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
Well, I have 3 adult sons. My oldest son, Jonathan, is autistic, so he's actually in a special program up in Kentucky, which is wonderful. And my middle son is in law school, and my youngest son is an IT professional. I'm very proud of all of them. I'm married. And for the past 39 and a half years, I have been a practicing attorney, still am. I actually am in-house counsel for the largest hospital system in South Florida. And when my kids left the nest, I decided it was my time to basically reinvent myself. And I had watched my mother suffer terribly when my older sister went to college, and my mother went to bed for 6 weeks, and it left a huge impression on me. And I knew then, and I made a vow to myself then, that I would not do the same thing. And in the ensuing years since my kids left the nest, I started exercising and ran 2 half marathons and multiple 10Ks. I, at age 60, became a professional artist. I have no training in art at all. I do what I used to call my whole life doing doodles. I would draw these abstract drawings, and during the pandemic, I decided to buy some art pens and art paper and made little drawings, and my husband convinced me to sell them. And so I started an Instagram and a website in October 2021. In November 2021, I got an email from the Brick Lane Gallery in London asking me to come and exhibit my art, which at first I thought was crazy. It had to have been a spam, crazy message. And it turned out it was true. And so I did go to London in March 2022, but I started getting invited by galleries all over the world. And my art's been since exhibited in London, Madrid, Milan, Venice, Innsbruck, Miami. And I just finished my 5th exhibition in New York last week at the Agora Gallery in Chelsea. So that alone, made me think, wow, if I can do this, other women not necessarily become an artist, but there's nothing stopping you from reinventing yourself in the second half by taking the time that you have now that you're not responsible for, making the lunches, taking the kids to the activities, all the things. Now you have time in your calendar. And so I decided then that I was going to become a coach for midlife women. So I became a certified high performance coach, developed a coaching program, and decided also that I should write a book about it and write a book about my method and what you can do to reinvent yourself and the process that you can go through, especially for women who just don't know where to begin. And it is a very scary time, as you mentioned. Talk about fear. I mean, this fear of getting old, the fear of, am I done? Or do I have nothing left to give? Or, the messaging out there, like you need to be satisfied with what is instead of be excited about what could be. So I wrote my book, The Midlife Reboot. And I also have a YouTube channel called Midlife Unleashed with Julie Waas, where I try to put up new episodes every week or two, talking about the different aspects of, the feelings that you have and what you can do to overcome them when you get to this stage in life.
I'm gonna go back a minute and thank you for taking time to come on the show.
You're
I'm gonna go
welcome.
back a little bit because I'm gonna take my brain into the audience. So a lot of questions I may ask may be coming from their viewpoint.
Right.
Now here it is that you are a woman, but let's get real. You have a career. You're an attorney.
Mhm.
Most people would say, um, you got it made. Let's call it what it is. But let me go back a little bit. You mentioned something that we didn't. I want a little bit of clarification on.
Mhm.
You mentioned you saw your mother take to the bed when
Yes,
your sister went off to college. Am I correct?
that's absolutely right.
So, what made is she older than you? Your sister? Are you the
Older.
same age? She's
No,
older.
older.
Did your mother have the same reaction when you went off, or to do whatever you had to do?
That's a great question, and I wasn't home. I suspect not. Just based upon the little I know, but literally I was not home because I was off at college. I think at that point in time she had become resolved because it was 2 years later to
Mm.
her situation. I think what happened was with my sister leaving, to give you a little background, my mother was a college graduate. I'm actually the third generation of women in my family to be college graduates. My
Mm.
mother wanted to go to law school, and her father wouldn't let her. When she married my father said, no wife of mine will ever work. So I think my mother was very frustrated because she was brilliant.
Mm.
And, this was back in the 60s and 70s when, times were a little different then. And I think when my sister went off to college, it was such a shock to her because she knew that I was be leaving in a couple of years. And then it's like, what do I do with my life? And she sunk into a deep depression. In fact, she stopped talking to me that winter. And that's when I looked at her and I was like, I remember the vow I made. I remember the day. I remember the whole scene where I looked at her and I thought, when I get to be like you and my kids leave, I am not going to bed for 6 weeks and I will not sink into a depression. I'm going to make the most of my life, which is, I remember that vow when I came home after taking my youngest son to college.
But I'm a piggyback off of that too,
Okay.
a little bit, okay? Because I would think at that time you wasn't ready to really dive deep as to why your mother felt like that. But now you're older. At that particular time in the 60s, let's get real. Women didn't have fucking careers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can understand, I'm pretty sure you can now, the at that time having ambitions as a woman in the 60s, having ambitions and dreams and not have a way to pursue or the opportunity to pursue them. Do you think that maybe we're going to keep going? Do you think there was resentment on your part for not understanding what your mom was going through at that time? Or do you think your mom had resentment for the fact that she grew up in the era that she wished she had the opportunity that now you guys have the opportunity to have?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, and I'll tell you why. For instance, my grandfather, her father, his sister was a lawyer and was his law partner.
Hmm.
My grandmother always had a career after graduating from NYU in like the 1920s. And I think there was resentment that my mother wasn't allowed to do that. But on my part,
Yeah,
yes, I think I couldn't understand what was happening. I was 16 years old. It was
right.
1976. Nobody talked about empty nest syndrome. And I resented the fact that, wait a minute, I'm still home. What about me?
Yeah, yeah. So let me go back again. I'm trying to be sympathetic on both sides of the coin here. Knowing what your mom went through, and you made that that vow.
Hmm.
How difficult was it? Pressure put on you because you had two things going on. You made that vow, but you were young.
Right.
But then eventually you began to understand what your mom was going through. How did the vow change, and did it become more toxic for you to fulfill that than to understand, to not put that kind of pressure on you because you didn't have that type of environmental conditions that she had.
Right.
So there was no need to say, I'm not going to be like you, mom, because the environmental situations are different. That making sense?
That absolutely makes sense. And honestly, to be fair, I think I didn't really understand it till I was much older. I had a lot of anger and resentment that I carried with me through adulthood towards my mother. And unfortunately, it wasn't until she passed that I actually, I went through therapy and and forgave her because I did understand that she was kind of a victim of circumstances.
Right, right.
And
That's what I mean to say. Yeah.
yeah, no, totally. And so yes, I don't resent her anymore. In fact, I dedicated my book to her because I feel like in some small measure, if I can help other women to navigate this phase of their life and really enjoy it and just live a wonderful purpose-filled life, that in some ways maybe I can, make whole what my mother could have done or would have done, had she been permitted to do so. And so, yeah, I think, I mean, times are clearly different, but yes, there's no question that it took me years, decades to really come to terms with it and to really understand as a mother, as an adult, what was really happening. I had an inkling when I was 16,
Right.
but I was 16 and, what did I know?
Let me go here. And I'm not trying to put your business out there in any
No,
way.
no,
But
it's okay.
what I'm trying to do is shed a light to
Hmm.
young women and mature women to
Yeah.
let them know that these are real life issues. But I applaud the fact that you recognize that it was troubling you to go seek therapy. So when you went
Absolutely.
to therapy to address the issue, I'm not gonna call it survivor remorse because that's kind of shallow. So what was the things that you learned during the therapy session of coping with what you was trying to deal with your mom and your own transformation
Mhm.
that became that you now look back and go, wow, that was really deep. If I didn't address this at that particular point in my life, it might have recycled the same situation that my mom was in without me even knowing it. Even though I have the opportunities that are still in front of me, I could still wind up in that same situation.
Yeah, I think really it was eye-opening for me because I had a lot of anger towards my mother and for a whole variety of things, but I think it just coming to terms and understanding her situation, the times that she was living in, her life as a whole, and also, my personality. Um, I was always the one, I guess, that would be the one that would do it anyway. I'm going to
Mhm.
show them kind of thing.
Right.
And part of that is probably what motivated me to keep going. But I think when my youngest son went to college, and I mean, I just remember the day he graduated from high school, and I just collapsed in a sobbing mess at his graduation because I was just so overcome by the thought that where did those 18 years go? And
Mhm.
now he's leaving. And, I felt very much like I could imagine how my mother felt.
Right.
And I can imagine how most women feel. It's a very unsettling, scary, suddenly your whole identity as a mother, for most mothers, not everybody, but I always joke about how for all those years I wasn't Julie Waas. I was Jonathan's mom, Michael's mom, and Benji's mom.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, who am I if I'm
Yeah.
not taking care of my kids? So I think it all sort of came together at that point in time where I really gave a lot of thought to what my mother went through, and she was unable to get any help then. Um, she didn't seek any therapy. My father didn't believe in it, so he wouldn't take her. And I look, as a child, I don't know what was going on in their marriage and all of that, so
Right.
it's hard to say how that all worked out. But I wish my mother had opportunities that she didn't have.
Let's go back a little bit now, moving forward. Let me cap off of that and throw my own experience in there because I know this. I know you're a female, but let
Mhm.
me give shouts out to the guys who are also single fathers and are reverse role because I was that individual. I was
Okay.
not only the fitness instructor. I'm Cinnamon's, mother, her father, and I can relate when it's time to leave the nest. It just happens so quick, and now it's time to reinvent yourself. Like, what do you do because you spent so many years? So let me give some shout outs to the guys too that are in that same situation. Now let me go back a little bit with you. You carry the title attorney. So most women would be like, okay, why do you need to reinvent yourself if you already are labeled an attorney at law, your mother and you are a happily married wife? I mean, there should not be any holes in the pie. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes total sense. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I have had an amazing career as an attorney. But I think I know other attorneys in this situation, and or in the empty nest phase. And while you may have a satisfying career, I think in some ways, women, and I don't like to broad brush this, but I just know from, because I have a husband, that women are not as identified by their career, if that makes sense, that
Yeah,
is
as
a
they
that's
are taking care of their kids and their family.
yeah, that there's more to it. And I think when that void happens, because I think even though you have a career and a fulfilling career, in whatever you're doing, and I certainly have as an attorney, I work with an amazing organization, and I love them. And I'm very proud of my career and what I've done with it. But I always say the most important thing I ever did was raise my three boys.
Mhm.
And I think women are typically multitaskers. And just like I always joke about, you go look at a woman's computer like mine, and you have multiple tabs open.
Mhm.
And my sons and my husband are like, "Why do you have so many tabs open?" Well, I may need them. I'm working on different things. And
That's
I
just like
think
a man
when
because I would say the same thing.
So I think it's a little different for women, and I do know it's funny because I know several women, attorneys, professionals that I've spoken to and worked with, and while they love their career, when this opening happens and or emptiness happens, there's a feeling like you want to fill that time. You don't want to just go to work every day. You want to have something else in your life that you can do, that you can enjoy on the weekends or at
Mhm.
night, to look forward to and to explore new things.
But I would still think that I'm just going in the head of what my audience might think.
No, please.
You're still like the Brady Bunch. You're still like the Cosbys. You got to there should not be any outside of the children leaving in the empty nester. You still have a solid foundation of a husband, a career. You just do you travel. So why re? I don't. I'm trying to say this right way. Was there something more missing in the life outside of the children in the empty nester? Because from the outside looking in, and you're a lawyer, you know how they do in the court. It looks like your life is perfect. I don't know why you trying to fill the void that doesn't in hindsight 2020 doesn't need to be fulfilled.
I think it depends on the person, honestly. I mean, there are plenty of people, women, that don't feel that they need to do other things. I think it's really depends on your personality.
Hmm.
And if you are a person that likes to be busy or likes to be challenged and also wants to figure out, like, who am I now? And that's a lot of it, I think, that women go through, especially the emptiness. It's like, okay, who am I if I'm not taking care of everybody else? And yes, it does look, I fully recognize that from the outside looking in, it looks like why would you, why? And let me tell you, I mean, I'm extremely grateful for my life and my whole journey. But I do think it's a personality thing. I think if you're somebody that's constantly seeking new challenges or wants to feel productive in other ways and are not necessarily defined solely by your job, that's where you would look to do other things. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing. I mean, it could be just, deciding I'm going to finally exercise, or I'm going to finally, um, join a book club or something like that. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just something where you now have some time to explore other things that you might want to do in addition to.
I'm gonna ask you this question, and it may sound a little, well, you're a lawyer. You know, I've got to come at you straight guns,
Absolutely.
based on your family's heritage.
Hmm.
All lawyers, based on what you were seeing with your mom. Did you pursue the legal career because you felt it was comfortable, that everybody would expect you to do it? Because, like, you know where I'm getting ready to go with this. Because there wouldn't, you look, I know you know where I'm getting ready to go with this. I watched Perry Mason too. Or was it because it was the easiest road to travel for doors to open up? Because at the end of the day, you made a success out of it, but you were still not completely satisfied, because now you transitioned during the COVID now to doodling. Don't let me keep going now, to doodling, to writing a book. So let's go back to the question.
Yeah,
Was
that's a great
was
question.
pursuing a lawyer career the easiest road less traveled to get approval, to get married, to get stabilization?
Wow. You're really good. It's funny that you mentioned Perry Mason. I have to tell you because, I know lawyers that are like, from the time I watched Perry Mason, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I did not know I wanted to be a lawyer. Honestly, I was in college and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
Right,
And I did think, well, being a lawyer would be a good career. Um, it's interesting. My grandfather was a lawyer.
right.
My father was a dentist, so he wasn't a lawyer.
Okay.
And I had no, and my grandfather had passed away before I was born. But to your point, no, I did not have a passion to be a lawyer when I was growing up, I didn't have a passion to be, I didn't go to college thinking I am going to be a lawyer.
Right.
That is not how it happened. And it's interesting because possibly if I were that person that was so passionate about it from an early age, maybe I wouldn't think about doing other things.
Right. So you didn't ask my question. Was that a choice you choose because it was less confrontational?
No, I chose it because I wanted to have I knew I wanted to have a career. Um, at the time when I was in college, I was a religion major. Uh, I there wasn't I didn't wasn't going to pursue that in graduate school.
Right.
I didn't know what I would do as a job. And I knew that being a lawyer was a good, solid career. And I did find it really interesting. I always watched like the law shows and stuff like that on TV. But I didn't have anybody close to me in the family that really told me what it was like to be a lawyer. I really didn't know. And but I thought this would be a good path. And I like an intellectual challenge, and I knew that law school would be an intellectual challenge, which it was, and also being a lawyer would be, and that would satisfy my desire for intellectual challenge. I don't know that that answers your question.
We're sustained at this point.
Okay.
So let me go here. Let me go back a minute because I'm going off of something that you said. The people that were lawyers were no longer here. How was the relationship with you and your mom as you was getting into your career? I know that's
Yeah.
and the only reason why I asked that because you opened up that evidence just a minute ago when you said there
No.
was like nobody there. So I'm looking at your mom. Looking at your mom, how much of a force was she during this this transition of your life? Because the fact is, if she didn't have those opportunities, you begin to ask yourself, well, what support do you actually bring outside of the love and the care of a mother? Does that make any sense? What I'm trying to say?
Makes total sense. It makes total sense. And to be perfectly honest, um, I think my mother was proud of me, but we had, like I said, a difficult relationship. And I think part of it was maybe she resented the fact that I got to do what she wanted to do. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but we did
No,
have a very difficult relationship, and she was angry at me much of my adult life.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked that question.
No, it's actually a very fair question. No, I think it's an excellent question. And I think it's something I've actually pondered a lot is that here I am. I became the lawyer that my mother wanted to be.
Right.
What was, was there a motivation beyond just, I wanted a good career? I'm not sure about that. Honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I I think my mother would have been an
Right.
excellent lawyer. I mean, she was brilliant, and so yeah, I think um,
I didn't want to make the audience feel like I was being insensitive, but the fact of
no,
the
you're
matter
not.
is,
These are fabulous questions. These absolutely fabulous questions, and very, very insightful.
well, because you're dealing with empowering women and you're doing a shift change in the mid part of your life. So what I'm trying to show the females and the young females and the mature females is that okay, well, if she wasn't able to give those particular nourishments to you, it's not that she didn't want to, she didn't have the capability. So now my next question is, who did you wind up really you who did you wind up really using as a anchor as you got older before you got married? What did you gravitate to your sister? Did your dad step up? I mean, who became an anchor force for you? Or did you do it on your own?
I did it on my own. I actually got married to my first husband in law school. We met in law school, and I did not have an anchor. I
Now
didn't.
I'm gonna ask a question. This may be hard to answer because people need to listen to the podcast, understand where I'm going with this, if so it makes sense, and to show you why people may do certain things. Not saying you did it, but because there was not an anchor or a support system. You're going to college. You're getting ready to go into law school. No anchor, but more importantly, you a female. Let me rephrase that. You a female. Did you get married at that point in your life because you needed, not that you needed, let me rephrase this, because it may have been a easier way to navigate the rest of your life, knowing that you didn't have that at first to gravitate to?
Uh, there's probably a lot of truth in that. Yes.
Wow. Now, thank you for being truthful on that. Because it
That's
started to make sense. I'm putting myself in your shoes. And this is what I tell people. In order to understand somebody's journey, you got to first be able to listen. You got to put yourself in their shoes and say, what would I do if I was in her shoes or his shoes? And a lot of times when you make those moves, especially when it comes to marriage, that marriage usually doesn't sustain too good because the intentions weren't the best of intentions. Am I correct or wrong?
no, you're correct.
Now let's go deeper. You wind up in your apartment or your house and you start doodling. This is what I find bizarre, which means you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And sometimes it comes from the most craziest and bizarre things that we do.
Yes.
You're sitting in your house and you're doodling during COVID. I can't even imagine what I was doing. I know what I was doing during COVID. I was trying to figure out how to rebrand myself.
Okay.
So I get you. But you pull out a pen and paper and start writing, and now you're an international artist. How in the heck could that have happened?
That's
Tell
a
me,
great
tell me that
question.
story. Tell me that story.
Well, like I said, I've been drawing ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I can't even remember I remember in sixth grade, I used to draw on the margins of papers, and one of my classmates wanted me to do the wall in his bedroom, and his mother was smart enough to say no. So I've been drawing, doing these drawings mindlessly my whole life. And what happened that day, I was working from home because I've been working from home since COVID. And I was listening to a deposition as I'm the client. So I was
Julie,
just
hold
listening.
on 1 second. Hold that one thought. We got something that popped up on the screen. I want to make sure it doesn't interfere with the thing. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna cut that part. We're gonna cut that part out. So I'm gonna start all over again. One,
Okay.
two, three. So during COVID, while other people are trying to figure out how to get food on the table and just anything you do during the pandemic, you pick up a pen and a piece of paper and you start doodling. Now you become an international artist. Tell me how all that took place for you.
It's truly unbelievable for me. But ever since I was very little, I was always drawing these same little abstract drawings, since as long as I can remember, and never really thinking anything about it because my sixth grade art teacher told me I had no artistic talent, so I never took another art class after that, because I couldn't draw a tree or a person or anything, anything normal, I
Yeah.
guess. And so it was a day that I was working from home, attending a deposition as the client. So I was just listening, and can get kind of boring just sitting there listening. And I was drawing like I usually draw, just listening and drawing. and I just decided to buy some art pens and art paper just on a whim. Went on Amazon and ordered them because I didn't leave my house for like 2 years. Um, and had made these little drawings and I put them in some cheap frames and put them in the kitchen. And my husband saw them and he was like, "Oh, these are really good. You should sell these." And it took months before he could convince me to do it. I never, ever, ever, like in a million years, dreamed that any art gallery would ever contact me or find me.
Yeah.
And what I found out is that they go on Instagram and they look for artists.
Right.
And but it is an unusual story because I mean, and let me preface this by saying that I've sold basically nothing
Right.
in all my exhibits that I've had, and I've had many. But that's not really. I'm just thrilled to be in an art gallery and to be asked to be in an art gallery, and I take none of it for granted. It's a crazy story. I never ever would have believed that this would happen. That's why when I got that first email from the Brick Lane Gallery, I thought, this has got to be a joke. Like,
Yeah.
why would they want me? And, talk about imposter syndrome. When I go to these art openings, I was just up in New York at the beginning of March for the opening of my last exhibit. And, it's like a pinch me moment big time because it's just incredible to me that my art's sitting on the wall of a gallery in New York. Like,
Man,
never would have dreamed it.
that is like so effing cool, man.
Yes.
Like
Right.
serious. Look at your title: lawyer, artist, author. Let's talk about the book.
Okay.
Talk about the book. You started one as a journal.
Yes.
Was that part of your therapy journey?
Well, it's interesting. I'm kind of a very much of a creature of habit. Very much a creature of habit. And my big habit of mine is I get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning
Mhm.
to exercise every day. I'm kind of a fitness fanatic.
Mhm.
That which started when I started running. I can't run anymore, but I have a Peloton, so I'm on that every day. But one of the things I do in the morning, and this is before I wrote the journal, is I sit down because the house is quiet, nobody else is up, my husband's still asleep, and I sit in my favorite chair and I close my eyes and I think about who and what I'm grateful for. I have these affirmations that I do and I pray. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I started to think, wow, this would make like a great journal because I'd like to write everything down. I've been journaling for several years, which I
Mhm.
think is an amazing practice. So I just decided, let me research how I can, self-publish on Amazon a journal and how I can put these templates together. And so what I did was I created this journal that asks the questions, what are you grateful for? Who are you grateful for? How do you want to show up today? What are the three things you want to get done today? Things like that. And then, your affirmation, and then there's space for somebody to just journal and write. And so that's why I did it. Because I use it myself.
Mhm.
And I wanted something to use myself that I write in it every single morning. I sit there, I have the same routine every single morning. And I just think rather than getting up and doom scrolling and, doing a bunch of things, it really it starts my day in a positive way. Even when I'm not feeling well or something's gone wrong, just sitting there and going through the exercise of thinking about gratitude and what you're grateful for. And, one of the things every day I think, wow, I am so grateful for this crazy journey of my life that I never would have believed all of these things would have been happening.
Right.
And it changes your mood and
Right.
changes, and just thinking about other people and thinking about all the people I love and wishing them well. There's just something very magical about it. So that's why I created the journal.
And let's talk about a book that's really dear to you, and that's the book that's sitting behind you.
Yes.
What's the story behind that, and how has that changed your life in general? Writing it.
Well, the story behind it is, I've been working on trying to put together what I think is a good like plan to go through and questions to ask. Because, like I said, I love journaling, and part of I think for me and I think for others of the figuring out what you want to do with the rest of your life is an opportunity to answer a bunch of questions, to really reflect on your life, which is the first chapter of the book is called Reflect. And I think in order to move forward with your life, you need to think about the past and the good things, the bad things. There's really no, I always think about, are there really bad things? There are unfortunate things. There are tragedies. I would, sure wish my son wasn't autistic, but, there's lessons to be learned in everything. And I always think everything is a stepping stone and a reason why it happens. So I decided to expand on, reflect, what questions to ask, then refocusing on, okay, so now that you've reflected, now that can figure out what you maybe want to focus on now and, discard the things that you don't want to keep with you and keep going, and then replicate what you're doing. So that's my third chapter. And then replace things that are not working and that you want to try new. And that's another chapter of the book. And it's all filled with questions and exercises. And then the next step is, I call it reignite, where you're now like found your newfound passion, and you're going to reignite yourself and continue to explore what's good, and then come up with a personalized action plan
When you
for
look
what you're
at
going to do. So that's basically the story. I took the framework
right,
and expanded on it,
when you
because at
look at
first I started with just all those R's and those were R words, and then just made it grow.
when you look at the book itself as a whole, what are the three most powerful chapters to you, and why?
It's a great question. One I hadn't really thought of, but I would say reflect is very, very powerful, because I think, like I said, before you can move forward, you sort of have to look back. And when you reach midlife, it's a wonderful opportunity to look back at your life and think about, what you've gone through, all the amazing, things that you've overcome, and, to really, really like make, answer those questions and dig deep into who you are, because I think that reveals to you who you want to become, or who you are and who you just want to evolve to. Um, and then I would say probably, that's a tough one. I like, refocus, when you refocus where you're going and you start to get on your journey and start to figure out what's next. And then I would say the final step of your personalized action plan, I think is awesome, because you put it all together and figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. But it can evolve too. And I always tell people, just because you say this now, you don't know in a year you're going, or in a few months you'll like figure out, well, maybe this isn't working and I need to rework it. So I would say those, but it's hard to pick. It's like it's my baby. So
Now, were there
my
ever
favorite
moments?
parts.
Were there ever moments during the construction of the book that, or let me go back. Were there ever moments of just vacating the whole project and just looking at yourself as to where you at and say, I'm going to just deal with life the way it is. I'm happily married. I got a great career. I don't think I have the patience or the tolerance to take on this project.
Yes, I think I think it's funny because yes, I've experienced that with the book. I've experienced that with a lot of the things that I've done. And one of the things I was just having a conversation with a client the other day about that, about sometimes you just sit there and you're like, why am I doing this? I could just be content to,
Right.
sit on the couch and watch TV. And why am I putting myself through this? Why? And I like to say that we all have this like little major general that's outside our ear telling us, stop, don't keep going. Why are you doing this? And I always say that that major general is trying to keep us safe and keep us from moving through the fire to get to the other side. And I always say, well, you tell the major general, you got it, you're okay, it's okay, thanks for your input, and I'm going to keep going. But I think, yes, I think everybody, it's natural that when you're doing something new and doing something you've never done before or is challenging, you have these moments where like, and I have them, I still have them,
Mhm.
where I'm like, why am I doing this? I should just be content. I should have just been content to, sit outside. I live in Miami, just hang out by the pool. Why do I push myself? Um, and I think it's just an idea of like, you really want to do it. You just got to keep going and you've got to, self-talk, tell yourself, it's
Mhm.
okay. It's okay to have those feelings and
What
then move forward.
before we wrap up? Once again, thank you for taking time to come on the show. But this is a
Of course, this has been
this
amazing.
this is a question I just have to ask. Who should read your book? Who should follow your plan?
Um, it's written for midlife women who are at that stage of their life where they're trying to figure out what's next. But I actually had a very interesting conversation with another attorney that I know, and she has a little kid, a 7-year-old son, and she bought the book and she was telling me, oh my God, I read this with my husband and we talked about the questions, and this is great. It's really not just for midlife women. These
Mhm.
questions are kind of universal, but the book really is directed at midlife women, but I think it's for anybody who's trying to sort of figure out their life and what's next. And, I've thought a lot about writing one for men because I think men struggle when they retire
Yeah,
if they don't have a plan
yeah. And
and they don't necessarily think about it.
I gotta say this too, and credit to the legal force. You guys deal with a lot of depression that goes undiagnosed because you got to deal with other people's issues in the court of law. You
Yeah,
go home to a lot of your own, not only your own situations, but you got to carry other people's cases into a courtroom that can be even more mind boggling. So my hat's off to you for that too. Um, but my last question here is, how has writing that book, how has dealing with your mother situation, coming to grips with who she is and who you are, how has that changed you as a person? And at the end of the day, what's your purpose? Because at the end of the day, it's about purpose.
oh, absolutely. How has it changed me? It's made me a far more grateful person. Grateful for everything that's occurred to me in my life, grateful for my mother and really the lessons that she taught me. And I hope to make it up to her. I hope she's proud of me wherever she is. And I think my purpose is to, honestly, I get the most joy and the most satisfaction from helping other people and helping other people make their lives better. Not telling them what to do, but letting them discover for themselves what's their purpose is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's changed me in so many ways, but so grateful,
Oh, I can
so
tell.
grateful for
I
my
can tell.
journey.
So, my last question: how can the viewers reach out to you and get a copy of your book? get a copy of the journal, and more importantly, even your artwork? How can they get in contact with you?
Okay. Well, my books are on Amazon, so you can either look up The Midlife Reboot or Unstoppable Mornings, or you can just look up my name, Julie Waas, and on Amazon, and they will both come up. So they're both available. They're available. The book is available on Kindle and hardcover and paperback. The journal is available paperback and hardcover. You can reach out to me on my website, which is juliewaas1word.com. You can reach me by email, julie@juliewaas.com. You can also find me on YouTube at Midlife Unleashed with Julie Waas. And you can find my artwork on intuitiveabstractart.com. That's one word. And on Instagram, I'm either julie.waas or my art Instagram is intuitive.abstract.art.
Sounds like a winner. Julie, thank you so much for taking
Thank
time
you.
to come on the show to not only inspire myself, but inspiring other women around this world. Make sure you click, you like, you follow. All it takes is one click of a button to make a difference in someone else's life and maybe change yours. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.